The games I'm about to discuss are no longer available for purchase anywhere, except through second-hand sellers. Activision's licensing deal with Hasbro expired in December 2017, and all Transformers games were delisted from digital stores. Good luck. Being given the Transformers license must be an amazing and horrifying opportunity for a developer. The game design potential comes packaged in as part of the deal. The whole franchise is devoted to robots who shoot each other and turn into cars. Not a lot of thought needs to go into what genres you need to be building your game for. The problem arises when you realise Transformers is also a cartoon and movie franchise. And video game tie-ins are infamous for low budgets, rushed development, and last-minute changes to fit the source material. Somewhere in this license was the potential for an amazing shooter/vehicle combat game, and there was one fairly solid Armada tie-in on the PS2, but it took 17 years for Hasbro and Activision to decouple the games from the movies or show and really give a developer the freedom to make that potential a reality. Transformers War for Cybertron released in 2010 and is based on no pre-existing Transformers canon or toy line. High Moon Studios' pitch of the game to Hasbro treated it as a new IP. War for Cybertron is a game that could have coasted on novelty. There's nothing else like it, because the only thing like it is Dark Void, and comparing Cybertron to Dark Void would be an insult to Transformers. As best as I can tell, War was the first Transformers game to offer anytime, anywhere transforming, where the transformations defaulted to a vehicular combat mode instead of some kind of driving. In implementing alternate forms this way, by making a game which can become a vehicle combat game whenever and wherever the player wants for the entire campaign, War for Cybertron was already offering something we hadn't seen before. It could have relied on this new implementation of the transforming gimmick and watched the review buzzwords roll in. Novel, unique, innovative. What it didn't have to be on top of that is a damn good third-person shooter. War for Cybertron is one of the few third-person shooters of the day that doesn't have a cover system. Rampaging around shooting at everything until nothing shoots back is the name of the game here, and the Halo-style partially regenerating health lets your Transformer eat up damage while they dish it back out. I've discussed why I enjoy this kind of dynamic coverless shooting to various degrees in several of my videos, notably Max Payne, Jak 2, and Suffice to say, the game provides enough hiding spots on the battlefield for a quick health regeneration, while also making arenas small and serpentine enough for enemies to flank fast and keep you on the move. Guns are accurate even when you're not scoped in over the shoulder, making the base movement speed during active combat pretty fast compared to other cover system free shooters like Resi, where you have to scope in to shoot. These 3D run-and-gun type shooter mechanics originally peaked in first person with Doom, and then in third person with Max Payne, and it's a style which wouldn't get its dues again until the recent Wolfenstein and Doom reboot games. Actually, we could really use a term to classify this kind of game, couldn't we? Fast-paced shooter sells short the differences between these games and like Dead Space. It's not just that movement is faster or your aim has less weapon sway. Having to aim down sights to be accurate doesn't just feed into the speed of gameplay. You have to aim down sights for accurate shots in Vanquish, and if that's not a fast-paced shooter, I don't know what is. But in this one and only regard, it plays the same way as Uncharted. I'm going down the semantics rabbit hole a bit here, but the point is, Transformers' shooter mechanics function in a way undeniably suited to making the combat fast. I feel like even a jump button in a third-person shooter is uncommon, and the game makes use of this with plenty of verticality in the arena design to keep you moving and aiming on two axes instead of just one. And there's a lot of ways to move in the Cybertron games. In War, you can run around in robot form, hover in vehicle attack mode with the same third-person shooter control layout, and boost across the battlefield in a proper driving mode, where the turning radius is increased significantly from 0. Apart from the ability to ram enemies, the driving in War mostly functions as, a complicated sprint button, and to enable a few cool high-speed set pieces. One in particular is fucking awesome, and it could only happen in a Transformers game. The combination of the two vehicle modes encourages quick getaways perhaps more than any other shooter. You can drive up to a group of enemies, blast them away, and drive on seamlessly. There's no scoping in at all in vehicle mode, so that aiming reticle is still rock solid, and drive-by shootings control really damn well, which can't be said for most games that try it. As much as I feel like I should have to make a big deal out of the transforming in a Transformers game, the transformations do come down to giving the player another way to move around and another way to shoot, using essentially the same control scheme, give or take some camera sensitivity. There's a hell of a lot of window dressing here that rightly makes the game feel distinct for the 8-hour campaign, not least of which is a well-built, refreshingly cover-free third-person shooter. The transformation animations are roundly out-fucking-standing, the flight controls on console are some of the best you could hope for, and the game design all makes sense. Powerful enemies are slow, flying enemies are large, so having to aim on 2 axes isn't frustrating, enemies with shields are melee only and need to be attacked from behind, which forces you to move. You guys know the drill. War picks out the best third-person shooter tropes from all eras to fit with the Transformers license, and as that would suggest, it arrives at something which is equally unique in its execution and very familiar in its individual parts. There's a sneaky co-op campaign mode in War which I gave a go with my boys Rez and Goolashe, though the game doesn't seem to adapt itself at all to the number of players playing. Ammo and health are still found one at a time, as you'd expect for one player, and enemy numbers and health aren't bumped at all. I constantly found myself either out of ammo or with nothing to shoot because the boys had my back, or both. I could swing either way on whether co-op was always planned or a last minute inclusion, so I won't guess, but as co-op goes this is pretty low effort. Still, you are ultimately playing the same good game with a couple of mates, so I feel like co-op is the kind of thing that's worth having regardless of quality. If I'm playing a non-competitive game and having a yarn with some mates, I'm not usually using much of my brain. In talking about War, I've been using a lot of fence-sitter words like good and unique and distinct, because War for Cybertron isn't a game that sits on any extremes. It's a shooter that does enough to set itself apart, but maybe not so much as to really stand out. Transformers Fall of Cybertron stands out, and is a great game. It's a prime example of a sequel making tons of sensible improvements which compound and elevate the game to a new level. When the game begins with several levels designed similarly to War, the most instantly noticeable new abilities are the dash and the sprint. There's no more complaining that the transformations are a complicated sprint, because now there's an actual sprint. The initial dash becomes the real star here though. It makes a shooter that already has faster movement than most shooters even faster. There's still little need to aim down sights, so there's really no reason for the player's flow of movement to ever be broken by slow aiming or overwhelming enemy numbers. Every robot can now haul ass across the battlefield faster than Shia LaBeouf can plagiarize. Fall features only one playable character per campaign mission this time round, each with their own special abilities, and it's finally a recognition of the gameplay variety possible with the Transformers license that's been staring developers in the face the whole time. This is a series about robots who can transform into anything with moving parts. Fall can have pretty much any and every type of shooter level design it wants to. There can be levels based around standard linear progression for soldier types like Optimus and Megatron. Then you can have open, non-linear, objective-based arenas for flying types like Vortex and Starscream, mech sections with Bruticus, even one melee-only level with Grimlock. Cliffjumper gets some basic optional stealth mechanics, and Jazz gets a Batman grapple hook and an excellent G1 impression by Troy Baker.
Careful, Jazz, there's a whole squadron of nasties on the other side of that door.
That's what they're saying to each other right now.
To be fair, this variety is obvious, but also a lot of work that's not worth doing if each playstyle isn't going to be good. Props to High Moon, because Fall nails every single one. Consider the difference here between how Optimus progresses through a level versus how Vortex's flight level is designed. Optimus, as an obvious candidate for standard linear shooter design, travels down tight corridors and runs around multi-tiered arenas as he makes his way forward through each level, maintaining the level of quality from War. Vortex, as a helicopter, spends most of his level flying around the base of a bridge taking out support struts. This fixed location design works best for his transformation because it's essentially one big oval with several tiered platforms. It fits right into the multi-directional vertical nature of flight. Aerial movement isn't just for moving in the direction you're already facing. There's potential here for going up, down, forward, back, left, right, in and out. What better shape for that level to take than a three-dimensional spherical object, making use of all of those dimensions? Contrast this with Optimus, who's a big heavy truck designed for ramming in a forward direction on the ground, and it's obvious that his level should be linear. You see how the devs have let the transformations dictate the most fitting variety of shooter level design for each character, rather than being tone deaf and trying to force Starscream into a Megatron stage when one is a jet and one is a literal tank. To be fair, War got this mostly right with these two transformations as well. The only level types there were the linear foot soldier levels and the aerial combat ones. Fall goes a step further and gives every playable transformer a unique gimmick and combat designed around it. Jazz's grapple hook is the best example, with fights taking place on small platforms suspended over pits of acid. Repositioning during a gunfight now changes completely because you have that verticality in there again, but with a lot of potential for lateral movement removed since the individual platforms are so small. Think of how a VR shooter like Doom VFR plays, where you have to warp between spots where you can shoot, and you get something a little bit like how Jazz plays. Grimlock's interesting just for being a melee-only character fighting enemies who still have guns, and I think they did a good job of making him feel powerful without making him invincible. Bruticus does feel outright invincible, but fair enough, that's kinda always been the point with the combiners. It even makes sense for Soundwave to be the character who has to defend a position, since he's got Laserbeak and Rumble opening the door for him. I hope it's clicking that Fall could have just given Jazz a grapple hook, or thrown in a flight level, or a stealth mechanic, but it doesn't. It is individually good at doing all those things. The game design surrounding each of those gimmicks is good by the standards of that gimmick. The design of the aerial combat levels is good by the standards of an aerial combat game, not just by the standards of a section thrown into a third-person shooter to add variety. To achieve this variety, Fall does ditch co-op. It didn't have to, you could have easily had 3 grapple hook characters for that level and 3 flying types for that one, but an opportunity to improve on the co-op of the first game was passed up. Even if no improvements have been made, again I kind of feel like it's the sort of feature you might as well have. Others probably have more friends and stronger opinions on this than me. Fall also makes a host of other tiny changes that you'll only notice if you play the games back to back. The reticle has a circle fill in around it as you reload, which I want in every shooter right fucking now. Health is more delineated, so you know exactly when you need to let your shield regenerate. Every character can now use every weapon. Guns have fun upgrades like sticking a double damage round randomly into every clip. And weapons are divided into heavy and light so that you don't end up carrying 2 shotguns into a long-range boss battle. It's worth noting that 2 other Transformers games borrow this style of play: the Dark of the Moon movie game, which was also developed by High Moon, and Rise of the Darkspark, which plays the same but was developed by Edge of Reality and ties in with the Michael Bay movies as well as the Cybertron games. I don't have any way to play Dark of the Moon. As far as I can gather, it's just War with less polish, which makes sense, but I did play a little of Darkspark for this video. At best, it manages to meet par with the Cybertron games, because it's using the same gameplay systems and reusing assets like the devs' livelihoods depended on it. But at worst, it looks like this. Quite often. When one enemy suddenly started doing 10 times the damage of everything else, I didn't have much reason to continue other than obligation to this video. When the game threw me into a featureless elevator shaft and chucked several waves of the most boring enemy type in the game at me, I'd had enough. I don't need to tell you guys a movie tie-in game is bad, it's kind of a foregone conclusion, but in ripping from good games which weren't movie tie-ins, this had potential to buck the trend, which is why I even own a copy at all. I'm glad Darkspark exists though, because it confirms to me that it's not just my inner 5-year-old recommending these games to you because they fan-serviced me so hard. I'd love to be able to suck this franchise's dick harder than Punk Duck wants to suck my actual dick, but God knows it's been difficult recently. Transformers 5 just became the single worst movie I've ever seen, and that's coming from someone who can almost enjoy the 4th one. Sometimes it's good to have these terrible touchstones to compare the good stuff to. If 2 games have the same player mechanics, but one has combat which looks like this, and the other looks like this, then we have concrete, quantifiable examples of what good and bad level design are given those mechanics. Most of my Game Boys would agree it's harder to explain why a piece of design is good than to tell you why it's bad, so it's rare to be able to just put up side-by-side examples which speak for themselves. Flat, angular arenas are boring in a Cybertron game because the most complex level of strategy involved is a basic understanding of flanking. While multi-tiered arenas with both enclosed and open spaces are engaging because they allow for forward progression, backwards retreat, flanking, dodging and hiding. I'd prefer another good Cybertron game, of course, but if nothing else, the direct comparison is a good learning tool which you won't find in a series which only has good games. The challenge with this video for me was to say a few hopefully interesting things about a couple games which aren't hugely interesting anymore at first glance. Just about every individual part of the Cybertron games has been done better since, and a game which is only still recommendable on how well it combines dependent elements is a bit of a hard sell for a video like this, where I normally break games down into individual pieces. I hate the saying more than the sum of its parts being used in games critique because it means literally nothing without an explanation, but I guess it's fitting that a Transformers game would be the one to have me say that it's more than meets the eye.